Hello and welcome to Politics Today. I'm Farrukh Pitafi. Once again, we are going to talk about geopolitics and let us talk about prospects of peace. Afghanistan situation is volatile and it keeps worsening. And that's why, once again, we are going to talk about Afghanistan. There are two very important developments that I need to mention. U.S. Secretary of Defense, General Lloyd Austin, has spoken with Pakistan's army chief. That is very important. John Kirby, who is the spokesman of US DOD, particularly pointed out that the interest was to enhance cooperation between the two countries. And while he spoke about safe havens along Pakistan-Afghanistan border, he did not mention whether he was talking about any space within Pakistan or it was merely mutual concern about the safe havens within Afghanistan, which have been used against Pakistan as well. This is one development. The second development is tomorrow. Troika Plus or extended Troika is going to meet in Doha. And there, the US, Russia, China and Pakistan are going to actually share notes, compare notes, and they are going to find out what exactly is going to happen in coming days. Remember, while on one side this is happening, on the other side there are many things that India keeps on doing to spoil the situation. One, by framing Pakistan. As always, as I pointed out, UNSC is meeting since India is presiding UNSC for the month of August. In that, they actually convened a meeting, and in that meeting, Pakistan, despite its request, was not included. That is really, really immature-ish kind of behavior. When you look at how important the situation is, you can score points against your rivals or countries that you think are rivals, or you can actually sit down and realize that this is about human beings in Afghanistan, right? And because of that also, there seems to be a very hectic campaign on social media as well. The day UNSC meeting actually took place, Pakistani Twitter was seeing the highest trend. The highest trend was about "We stand with Taliban." Evidently, that was to frame Pakistan. How do we know about it? Because for the last 2 days, the first trend has been sanctioned Pakistan. I'm sure that the people who want to stand with Taliban don't want Pakistan to sanction. So there seems to be sinister designs. And unfortunately, India keeps on doing whatever it does best, confuse people and obscure reality. We are going to talk about all these matters and realize or try to actually focus on the fact that Pakistan is a contributor to peace. We are going to talk about all these matters. I'm going to introduce the panelists as well, but first, watch this report.
After grueling years of watching United States forces fight and die in a faraway land, President Biden appealed to growing war weariness among voters and brought the troops home. Not long after the Afghan Taliban stormed through areas the Americans had left, killing civilians, seizing power, and sweeping away billions of dollars worth of American efforts to leave behind a stable nation. That's what happened after Barack Obama withdrew American forces from Iraq in 2011. The jihadists of the Islamic State established an extremist emirate, prompting the United States to dispatch its military yet again to flush them out. It is also now a possible scenario in Afghanistan where Biden's order to shut down America's longest war has led to swift advances by the Taliban, the same insurgent group the United States invaded Afghanistan to topple after the terrorist attacks of September 11, 2001. President Biden decided to leave Afghanistan despite the risk that future developments could suck the United States back in. That policy has come under pressure in recent days as Taliban forces seized 7 provincial capitals and exposed the weakness of the Afghan forces meant to take over after the United States completes its withdrawal at the end of the month. During their advance, the Taliban have been accused of using assassinations and bombing to subvert talks aimed at creating a power-sharing government. Security experts warned that terrorist groups like Al-Qaeda and the Islamic State could use Afghanistan to plot new attacks abroad. The speed of the withdrawal has made many Afghans feeling that they are being left alone to deal with the messes created in part by American policies.
Farrukh has become the seventh provincial capital to fall in the hands of Taliban. The question repeatedly one has to ask is, as John Kirby also pointed out, that Afghan army is better equipped, it has manpower, it has everything, and yet this is happening. These are questions we are going to ask today. In order to help us understand these issues, in the studio I am joined by a great panel. Brigadier Retired Rashid Wali Janjua, Acting President of IPRI, Islamabad Policy Research Institute, joins us. Thank you very much, sir, for being part of the program. Ahmed Jawad Saab, just to tell us about the political aspects, political perceptions as well, and policy making. Ahmed Jawad Saab is Central Secretary Information, Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf. Thank you very much, sir, for being part of the program. And one politician who is not merely a politician, who is a brilliant lawyer and also a great analyst, and I've been saying it repeatedly, a great resource is Barrister Muhammad Ali Saif Saab, holds 3 PhDs apart from his Bharat Law, and he is an Afghan expert as well. So today he wears the analyst's hat. Thank you very much, sir, for being part of the program. On Skype we are joined by Asif Duttani Saab, who is former ambassador, a career diplomat. Thank you very much, sir, for being part of the program as well. Let me, with your permission, gentlemen, start with Barrister Saif. Barrister Saab, because you understand that region owing to the contiguity as well, let me ask you, at this moment it seems that Afghanistan is sleepwalking towards another disaster. And there are many interpretations. There is a possibility of refugee exodus. There is a possibility of spillover of violence as well. How to take care of that?
Well, my take on your comments is that Afghanistan is already in the midst of a full-fledged civil war.
Okay.
And the groups that are fighting with one another are basically Taliban, but Taliban's offensive is also has also got many other, like, minor or smaller groups which are allied with them but not part of them.
Okay.
At the same time, insofar as the government is concerned, I believe that Taliban are not being confronted by a united government or by a strong, solid institution called the government. As such, the military, contrary to what the Americans are saying, that Afghanistan has a potent military force, I believe that Afghanistan's military is in a disarray and in shambles at the moment.
Right.
The reason I'm pointing this out is that if you look at the historical context of Afghanistan and its military history, Afghanistan never had a potent military institution or establishment as such, never.
Okay.
They were only able to defend the major cities or some border posts in the past as well, during the time of Zahir Shah monarchy, and also during Dawood, and then later during the communist takeover of Afghanistan. So therefore, what the ground situation is that, number one, the only forces that have some capability of resisting Taliban advances are their special forces, specifically trained by the US, but not in large number. Okay. The army is around 350,000, kind of, plus minus. But I don't think that they have the capacity to defend or to wage a full-fledged war as such, not even convention and not against a guerrilla force. Afghanistan's history is such that tribal militias, either based on ethnic grounds or religious or whatever orientation they have, regional, they are always more potent and more effective in fighting as compared to their established army.
Right.
This has always been the case. It's not a new phenomenon that we are watching. So therefore, in my yes, as far as the government is concerned, Ashraf Ghani sitting in Arg, which is the official name of the Afghan palace, President House, he also has a divided government, not united. Dr. Abdullah has his own eggs to grind. then there are many others. Regional commanders are also fighting with each other. They are not in sync with the government as such.
Right.
Like Ismail Khan in Herat, he has a totally different political agenda as opposed to those in the north.
But Ismail Khan actually came out of retirement just to fight Taliban. And we are going to talk about that as well. Allow me to bring in another guest as well. Ahmed Jawad Saab, your take on this situation. I ask you to wear the political hat. And let me ask you, I saw parliamentary debate today. Is it not a critical time to expect a parliamentary debate on this matter rather than anything goes?
Farrukh, before answering that, because the main subject about Afghanistan, I would like to give my point of view on the subject.
Right, please do.
I will start with two important statements, one from Prime Minister Imran Khan and one from Chief of Army Staff in the recent past. And the statements are that we have to bring our house in order.
Okay.
So this is kind of our policy, our lesson learned, that we now want to be focused in bringing our house in order. So what was wrong in our house? That is also a question when we say that we have to bring our house in order. So what was wrong? And with respect to Afghanistan, in last 50 years, we fought first war for the Americans.
Okay.
And after the war was over, the Americans, they abruptly left. And the vacuum obviously was anarchy, about chaos and political instability in Afghanistan, and which obviously had an impact into Pakistan, and we suffered for that. Then came the Musharraf time, and this time again American came and they said, we need you, and we again became their partner to fight American war. This time it was in the name of terrorism, and we fought that war. And after that war, which lasted nearly 2 decades, again the same pattern. The American, they leave suddenly. Yes, there have been talk about it, but in the manner they have left, it is not an orderly manner. The orderly manner is that you bring all the stakeholders together, and so that if you want the peace to continue, so the stakeholders should be on board.
Right.
So they just left, and then we see what we are seeing today, and Barrister Saab very rightly pointed out, they are in the middle of a civil war. But if you allow me,
right, I have to go to other guests as well.
Yes, but I have to conclude my point of view, that these two patterns, they indicate, do you think the Americans are fools that they leave inorderly and they leave abruptly after every war? No. They leave with the intention to leave behind a crisis, anarchy, a civil war, instability, which can be a challenge and threat to Pakistan, China, and Russia. And so that next time they are again ready for another justification to come back or become again the savior.
Ahmed Jawad Saab, these are great talking points. My question was, why are you not actually having these talking points in the parliament? That was what
I'm not
we
in the
expected.
parliament.
But you are a representative of a political party that is ruling the country.
So, but I thought that if you have invited me, I must express my opinion on this very critical national subject.
And you did. Allow me to actually
thank you very
bring in
much for that.
Brigadier Saab, who is very patiently waiting for his turn. Brigadier Saab, your take, and how to shield Pakistan? Because we have this habit of focusing on Afghanistan, but we are sitting in Pakistan, and there is a rigorous effort to frame Pakistan from India's side, and also by the Afghan government.
You know, all those crystal gazers who are prognosticating a doomsday scenario, I think they have a point. As the situation pans out on ground, we first need to take stock of the facts. There is 300,000 and 7,000 plus minus Afghan National Defense Security Forces. But out of them, as per US think tank CNA, only 180,000 are deployable, combat deployable. And
What are the rest of them doing?
the rest of them are getting, some of them are getting demobilized, some are there are desertions also.
Okay.
And so out of that deployable force was pitted against ascendant Taliban, ranging from 60 to 80,000 of strength.
Right.
They have already taken 7 provincial capitals out of 34, and out of 200 districts they are in control. The rural areas have been, taken into sway. What is left is now, I think it is a kind of a tactical withdrawal on part of Afghan national and defense and security forces.
Okay.
They would like to withdraw orderly to the provincial capitals and fight there completely, kind of an urban warfare, from where they have some tactical advantages.
Right, but they're not fighting from there either. 7 provincial capitals have fallen already. And Kabul was attacked. The defense minister's house was attacked.
I'm coming to that. You must have heard Kipling, skirmish in a border town, a canter down some dark defile, 2,000 pounds of education falls to a 10 rupees jazail. It's question of asymmetry of will. For Pete's sake, world needs to understand this. It's not the asymmetry of resources, but asymmetry of will, where the Afghan national and defense security forces lack.
Right.
And that is why they are disintegrating. They have no cause, no motivation, and no cohesiveness.
Okay.
In the World War II, once the Germans were retreating, they were the most cohesive force, despite casualties. Why? Because there was a discipline and there was a kind of an ideology that they pandered to, right or wrong.
Right.
Here, there is no ideology for them. Ideology is with Taliban. So, Taliban in any combat would carry the day, and they are not casualty shy, by the way.
Right.
If they suffer 10 casualties, they hunker down and they disintegrate.
But, you'll realize that my question ultimately is of saving Pakistan and how to actually evade these conspiracies to frame Pakistan, especially India seems quite visible doing that, right? Pakistan has lost a lot, and with your permission, let me bring in Ambassador Saab, who is actually acquainted with the diplomatic world. Ambassador Asif Tutani, the question at this moment is what to do when India and Afghanistan's government, or at least few elements within Afghanistan government, try to blame Pakistan for everything.
I think we have to have a multi-pronged strategy to tackle that. There are spoilers, we have to deal with them, and then there's a situation along our borders. We have to tackle that because Taliban have already captured close to our border in Chaman, and then they are also threatening to, in fact, close the Torham border. So that would create a situation. And then we should be geared up for receiving refugees in case the situation gets out of hand. Although, for the time being, at least we can say the positive aspect of this whole situation is so far that no refugees have crossed over to other countries, especially the immediate neighbors, except that some Afghan troops, they had to cross over either to Pakistan or to Tajikistan. So right now the situation is under control, but you cannot be complacent. So these are the challenges we have. India did try, like in the Security Council, they did not allow Pakistan, but it was an informal consultation. They called it as an emergency meeting, but the presidential statement itself speaks quite a lot on that. Of course, during the debate, they wanted to target Pakistan, which they did. But at the same time, it is even in India, it is being criticized that Pakistan, being the substantive stakeholder, was not included in the debate. So this is on the diplomatic front also. You have to continue this, your narrative, you have to put across your narrative, which is being done, fairly done. But the situation on ground actually for Ashraf Ghani is very precarious. They are unable to defend their position militarily. They are unable to defend their position even politically. Reason being that Ashraf Ghani is presiding over a dispensation which is divided right at the middle. So here for Ashraf Ghani, and again now, it is just not the Afghan analysts who are now writing the doom for Mr. Ashraf Ghani. Even the Western analysts have started saying that I think for Mr. Ashraf Ghani, his days are numbered. So I think we have to be watchful, we have to be careful, and especially are those people who are the policymakers, or for that matter, our political bosses, they have to be careful when they talk about Afghanistan. Yes.
Right, that is very pithy, sir. Let me come back to the studio. And once again, Barrister Mohammad Ali Saab. It seems that Pakistan is a victim of double whammy. On one side, Pakistan is being blamed by the circles that we pointed out, although it seems that three major powers, that is the US, that is China and Russia, they are not blaming Pakistan. But India and its, acolytes are doing whatever they can. On one side, we are being framed or blamed for whatever happens. On the other side, Pakistan, a country that has fought terrorism, lost 80,000 people, $150 billion to war on terror, again, fears also that there will be a spillover effect and TTP may find more moral support if Afghan Taliban were to take over in Afghanistan. Question is how to evade this double whammy.
First of all, it's not surprising for me at all that the Afghan government is blaming Pakistan for whatever is happening inside Afghanistan. And India is, of course, they are in league with whatever is coming out of Kabul. Rather, I believe that whatever is coming out of Kabul against Pakistan is being dictated or told them, tutored by the Indians. Because if you look at the social media campaign against Pakistan, if you look at the international, from Europe and from the Western countries, the campaign against Pakistan is basically engineered and controlled by the Indian media houses. And it's something which is very obvious. A few months ago, there was this big scandal in which, a network was unearthed in Europe to have propaganda against Pakistan. One.
Secondly, full lab.
Exactly. Secondly, insofar as the present leadership in Kabul is concerned, I would say in Kabul, Ashraf Ghani and his colleagues, they have always been pro-Indian. Because of the fact that most of them are former socialists, communists, and left and Pashtun nationalists or ethnic, from Tajik or Uzbek nationalists. And they were the ones who sided earlier with Dr. Najib, and then after the fall of Dr. Najib, they all either migrated to the West, or those who could find refuge in India, they went there. They were educated there, and now you are seeing the after effects of the Indian indoctrination coming out of Kabul. So this is, therefore, we should, and if you look at the Pakistani, those who have historical links with those people during Dr. Najib's and the earlier eras, they are also playing the same music here in Pakistan as well. Talking against Pakistan's policies, criticizing Pakistan and supporting Ashraf Ghani. The other issue is that I personally believe that it is now the personality of Ashraf Ghani and people, his close aides, like Amrullah Saleh, like Hamdullah Mohib, people like, because, I mean, they are now the problem. And I think the Western countries also have this realization, this growing realization, that part of the problem in Afghanistan not being able to have a political settlement is Ashraf Ghani's reluctance to leave the throne or the seat of power. So therefore, in my understanding is that yes, there is this drama is unfolding in Kabul, but at the same time, we must put our house in order. Number one, the first step that we must take, the question that you asked, Hassam, I believe Pakistan's parliament must come up with a solid, united resolution, clarifying the position, Pakistan's policy on Afghanistan, number one, that we are not for Taliban or we are not for any group in Afghanistan. We just want a stable political dispensation in Afghanistan, number one. Number two, yes, I believe there's no doubt in my mind that there will be fallout of whatever happens in Afghanistan. TTP, our focus is on TTP and Daesh only. They will probably resurface. I have another...
and JUA.
Yes, but they are all religious extremist groups. In my fear is, or apprehension is, that we must also be wary of, and we must also keep an eye on those ethnic nationalist groups
Okay.
which have always been advocating and calling for separation of for separation of that particular those particular areas, like in Afghanistan, in Balochistan, as well as those extremist nationalists on the Pashtun side.
Right.
They are also
That
hands
is
and gloves with
a
them.
very fair argument. But with due respect, when you talk about Afghanistan, that's a country that seems to be beat up. I don't know what kind of intrapodal pull or interpodal pull it can have on Pakistan's Pashtun areas. But let me come to Ahmed Jawad Sahab. Ahmed Jawad Sahab, today I was listening to the Foreign Minister of Pakistan, right? Yesterday as well as today, he repeated that he saw one public representative, a lawmaker, making very sad statements, right? A solution to that would be more briefings, more sessions of the parliament. There's a reason why I keep on talking about parliament, because parliament is the seat of democracy. Your party controls the parliament. Why not actually call a special session and focus on this matter and come up with a resolution and take care of all the doubts or planted thoughts that might be there? On one side, Nawaz Sharif is meeting with Hamdullah Mohib. On the other side, we see these statements. Why not take care of it?
Farrukh, first of all, Senator Saif very rightly pointed out that Parliament, which is basically, if we can say, Pakistan. You know, Pakistan is represented by Parliament, and the government in the Parliament is represented by the Prime Minister, and they should all come unanimously on this narrative which represent Pakistan. There should not be any disunity, or there should not be any disparity among the rows and columns of Pakistan in Parliament or in the political canvas of Pakistan. And you very rightly pointed out that on one hand, we are going through a very critical time with Afghanistan, and we are having this very difficult international conspiracies, or the efforts from India and USA and Afghanistan to frame Pakistan, and you also use the word that Pakistan is a victim. In fact, I would never like to use the word of victim for Pakistan for few reasons. That Pakistan is a nuclear power. Pakistan has 6th or 7th largest and strongest military of the world. So we cannot be victim.
No, the US was a victim on the day of 9/11, so your power has nothing to do with your victimhood.
Yeah, but I don't want my country to be victim.
Yeah,
I want my country to survive. I want my country to come out safely in their national interest, rise to the occasion. And I think it has been
80,000
very
Pakistanis died.
And it has been very well represented by the Prime Minister, not only as a Prime Minister, but in last 20 years on this subject. He has always been saying about that this is not our war which we have been fighting. And for Afghanistan, even now as a Prime Minister in the Parliament, he expressed his thoughts that the government in Afghanistan should be the representation of the Afghan people without any interference from Pakistan or India or America or from any other corner. I mean, our policy is very clear. And don't you think that our opposition parties, which have been in the power, they are not naive as if they have never been in the government, and they have been running the foreign policy, People's Party and PMLN, and 3 times Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif, and then he is meeting the National Security Advisor of Afghanistan, and who is using such an abusive language for Pakistan, and he is meeting without the consultation of Parliament of Pakistan or the government of Pakistan.
Right.
It is just like that if you one day, if you have a situation like Pulwama with India, and Rajiv Gandhi from India, he meets our National Security Advisor in London.
Okay.
So what kind of the message and impression you give to your nation, to the country? And Indians will never do it. So they will fight within the Parliament, opposition and the government, but they are not going to do such kind of maneuvers which Nawaz Sharif exhibited in London, and no I mean, percentage of justification can be given to him because he had been Prime Minister for 3 times. So in this scenario, you can very well imagine that how opposition is helping and supporting this national crisis or this national challenge. Don't they know what is our policy and what should be our policy? And this has been expressed very loud and clear by the Prime Minister in the Parliament.
Right. Ahmed Jawad Sahab, once again, very important arguments, but they need to be made in the Parliament. One compliment though, this framing of Pakistan being an ally in peace, not in war, is brilliant, and compliments to the Prime Minister. But is this long answer of yours, does it mean no parliamentary session on Afghanistan?
There should be. Parliament, I mean, I would never say that there should not be any role for the Parliament.
Right.
For every national challenge, crisis, policy, I mean, the Parliament is the forum where government and the opposition spokesperson and representatives should sit down, talk on the table, and they should brief each other. I mean, it is the job of the government, and Foreign Minister is doing briefing on this subject.
Right. Brigadier Sahab, once again, let me ask you the same question, because being president of IPRI, you have had interaction with politicians as well. At this moment, how important it is? Because we have only the month of August, right? By the end of August, the US withdraws from the region. And then whatever the situation in Afghanistan, it becomes irreversible. So is it not important for every stakeholder right now to focus on Afghanistan and how to save Pakistan from these conspiracies?
I entirely agree with you. It is absolutely essential to forge a national consensus at this point of time, to bury the hatchet and political differences. But in many ways it is happening also. Let's not be too disconsolate on this score, because our national narrative now is emerging with a lot of stridency, let me tell you, and that is, you see, Pakistan has been a great enabler in this Afghan peace process.
Right.
United States should be thankful to Pakistan for this. This process was kick-started by Pakistan back in August 2019, once we got those stakeholders in Pakistan. And then the second meeting on Feb 2020, that agreement was also brokered by Pakistan. Come what may, United States might have, gone to great efforts to bring all these stakeholders, especially Taliban, together, won't have succeeded. It was expressly through Pakistan's good offices that Taliban were brought onto the negotiating table. And then September 2020, and then the latest Pakistani efforts of mediation in intra-Afghan dialogue, which is of utmost importance. Our entire effort at the moment is riveted on Troika Plus meeting in Doha tomorrow. But more than that, the important aspect is the intra-Afghan dialogue, which that meeting is going to facilitate. And Pakistan is going for a two-pronged effort. One, at the regional level, it's a very important country, and it shares a lot of commonalities, and it has to pick up the maximum problems if this thing further deteriorates. But China, Russia, and Afghanistan, all three are being actively courted, and these advocacy and diplomatic efforts are on through military means, military channels also, and civilian channels. And I think Pakistan is doing its best. And yesterday's call by United States Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin to Chief of Army Staff, on which a broad range of issues, unanimity was shown, it indicates very clearly how United States is relying on Pakistan and what positive role Pakistan is playing. Pakistan at this point of time should endeavor its best to reach a regional consensus and somehow ask the regional countries to come up with a joint declaration.
Right. Do you think this window of time, 20 days, 20 odd days, is enough to actually forge this kind of result or this kind of alliance?
It's doable.
Doable?
It's doable, but it's difficult.
Is there a precedent?
United States has done three mistakes. One, in 2001, that when they did not invite Taliban on Bonn process.
Yeah, that
Second,
was a big one.
2013, once they were having the maximum surge and ascendancy, They did not invite Taliban for a power sharing agreement.
All right.
And the third one was when they decided to evacuate their troops, withdraw, without forging a consensus. So once you undercut this, the basic plank that you had, that was the presence of security forces. And then you try and create facts on ground through over the horizon action
Right.
through B-52s.
Right.
Now what will imagine from a military perspective, the Afghan National and Defense Security Forces would withdraw, they'll hunker down in urban
Right.
provincial capitals,
Okay.
and once the Taliban
Even that
start
is not
pressing in,
happening.
the B-52s will wreak devastation on Afghanistan, and there is a
Right.
likelihood that Afghanistan's recrudescence of all this
Yeah,
is
let's face it, B-52s have been used throughout 20 years, right? It is not as if it
causes
is happening
devastation.
today.
So we'll have
So-
to reconstruct Afghanistan all over again.
No, I get that. And my concern at this moment is, A, how to save Pakistan and how to contribute to Afghanistan. Let me go back to Ambassador Saab. Ambassador Saab, one argument that is given, the way Afghan forces are behaving, the way they are crumbling in the face of Taliban resistance or attacks, does it not actually prove one point that was made by Donald Trump and now kind of endorsed by Joseph Biden, president as well, that it was a never-ending war, and because the shape of things are such, no matter how long you stay there, you cannot contribute to Afghanistan's situation or peace or stability. 20 odd years, trillions of dollars, equipment, army, support, everything. And yet, the forces are crumbling down, sir.
You're right. Reason being that everything was paratrooped in Afghanistan without understanding the realities on the ground, that whether the Afghan society and culture has the absorption capacity, what is being injected in the Afghan society. They tried to introduce democracy in Afghanistan, which never had the taste of this political system ever in their history. It has been a monarchy throughout, but now we see Mr. Karzai or Mr. Ashraf Ghani, they are trying to be the leaders, but they are not actually in practice. They may, even Mr. Ashraf Ghani he is from the nomadic tribe, so in the Afghan tribal structure, the nomads or Kuchis, their political standing is nowhere. So is his teammate, Mr. Amullah Saleh. He is nobody as far as his own, standing in among the Panjshiri groups is concerned, or among the Tajiks is concerned. So right now, Mr. Ashraf Ghani and Mr. Amullah Saleh, they team up and they are presiding over a chaotic house. And then we expect these results. So for the Americans, whatever they did or whatever situation which is emerging, it was all too obvious that it is not going to work the way they wanted to. And that's why I often say that they tried to apply Howard solution on a society which is ultra-conservative. They live somewhere in the 18th century. They have their own code of conduct and ethics, and that's how they have survived throughout the history. And there is the victor and vanquished psyche which prevails even today. So right now what is happening in Afghanistan is that Taliban, as Brigadier General has rightly said, is asymmetrical, and for them losing life has no meaning as compared to the Americans, for whom even a single soldier matters, because back home there's going to be a backlash if the Americans have to take the casualties. So here the need to understand the ground realities in Afghanistan, the culture of Afghanistan, its society, and how they have behaved over these years. They are talking about the rights, human rights, and all that. Even in Afghan society, they have their own code of conduct, which has to be followed. I'm afraid, even if we want to change it, but it will only change with the continuous engagement with them, and at least it will take generations. If you are thinking that the political solution is going to come by tomorrow, I'm afraid it will not happen. The military aspect would dominate the Afghan political scene, and for that we have to gear up, yes.
Right. Ambassador Saab, may I ask you very quickly to add your conclusion as well, because I'm told that we are coming to the end of the program. Very quickly, sir.
Well, very briefly, I think we have to wait and see. One. Secondly, we have to see that how these Afghan stakeholders they behave in Doha. I'm sure today's meeting must have brought some results. And as Churchill said, that 1 week is too much a time in politics. So we have 20 days left. I think some miracles can also happen. But it all depends on both sides that how they accommodate each other, especially. But it has to be an inclusive process, and Taliban will have to realize that they cannot be an exclusive entity and they can rule it. I think their actual challenge will start even if they become triumph. Their actual challenge will start if they capture Kabul. So it
Right,
is
sir.
important that they have to include all the stakeholders in the future setup. Yes.
Right. If we are waiting for miracles, then it is quite troubling already. Your conclusion, Barrister Saab.
Well, I believe for the time being, the situation will remain as it is. Taliban's surge in military attacks is one of the reasons is because of these Doha talks before arriving at a political settlement. They would like to gain maximum ground and push the other side to a situation where they can agree to their demands. So this is very natural. However, in the foreseeable future, I do see conflict still, in Afghanistan, and the bullet will and the gun will rule for some time.
Okay.
But what we need to do is, and I believe that we are in a better position now as opposed to the position in the past. We now have sealed the border, almost sealed the border to 2,600 kilometer border. We need to now improve. We have a dedicated army, we have a strong army, and we can defend ourselves and our borders militarily with confidence. But the problem is our governance system in the tribal areas, which may directly be affected by whatever happens in Afghanistan.
Tribal areas.
Yes, former tribal areas, the erstwhile FATA. What we need to do is we need to improve the governance system there. We need to take people into confidence, because all these elements who are anti-Pakistan, be those the Taliban, the Pakistani Tehrik-e-Taliban Pakistan, or Daesh, or for that matter Baloch separatists, and not just Baloch separatists but also those people who are anti-Pakistan on the Pashtun side as well. We need to keep an eye on them, keep them under control. So law and order and governance is the prime concern which we must focus on. At the same time, we must try to support all steps, everything in our power to bring peace to Afghanistan, to bring them to a settlement
as
and
quickly
negotiation.
as possible. Your conclusion, Ahmad Watson.
Farrukh, I think America has always been successful to use the situation in Afghanistan to its advantage. And it has happened twice. So this is the third time, and I think we can learn our lessons. And Prime Minister's statement on this subject is also very clear. And I think this time Pakistan, with the help of China, Russia, Iran and Turkey, should be able to develop a strategy which should prevent the influence of USA in Afghanistan, which is basically the root cause of political instability in this region.
Right. Brigadier Saab, your conclusion, sir.
As per me, United States is the 1,000 pounds gorilla in the room.
Okay.
It needs to understand that Indian genuflection to US surrogacy is the root cause of the problem.
All right.
And secondly, Pakistan's response. Pakistan needs to evolve a regional consensus. And Pakistan needs to put its own ungoverned spaces,
Do
properly
we still
protected.
have any?
Whatever we have,
Okay.
we need to do a better job of managing those. And our border management is okay. Border has been sealed.
98%.
90.
Yeah.
Our refugee management plan, I'm told that that is also now much better than what it was earlier.
Right.
But most important thing, Pakistan role which is already playing is that it is bringing all the rival Afghan stakeholders on a negotiating table. It can lean on Taliban, it can lean on Ashraf Ghani government,
Right.
and bring both stakeholders together,
Right.
so that there is an inclusive intra-Afghan talks bear some fruition.
So next 20 days will have to compensate for last 20 years. And that is what you're saying, right? I'm told that we have to conclude the program here. Brigadier Saab, thank you very much for being part of the program. Ahmed Jawad Saab, thank you very much for being here. Barrister Muhammad Ali Saif, always great having you in the show. And same goes for you, Ambassador Asif Tutani Saab. Viewers, you have listened to our participants. If you want to understand the absurdity of situation, just look at where the Afghan dialogue is going on, that is in Doha. And that, by a very interesting coincidence, is also a place from where the American B-52s are actually taking off to pound hideouts in Afghanistan. And simultaneously, of course, a lot of things are happening there. Regarding what is happening right now, it is important to remember, and one cannot stress this matter even stronger. It is the way Pakistan has sacrificed for past 20 years, 80,000 people dead, $150 billion lost to the economy and infrastructure, and then, of course, constantly being blamed for circumstances as well. Pakistan is a country that has borne the brunt of what is going on. It is about time that instead of actually engaging in this blame game, all countries work together and realize it is time to build peace, because that involves human lives. This was today's program. Thank you very much for watching. Take care.